And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
The smoke in the air of our Concord bridges and Pearl Harbors is always smelled first by the farmers who come from their simple homes to find the fire and fight.
If you embark on instituting a society where government protects you from yourself, you're in big trouble, and that's what they're doing. That's all government is force. I mean, do you have a choice about paying Medicare taxes? This government uses force to mold behavior or mold the economy. They've overstepped the bounds, and they violated the whole concept of our revolution and our Constitution.
Well, welcome aboard, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Freedom Link here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. And my, what an eventful day we had today at the studios here, Timmy. It didn't...
Oh, indeed.
Very interesting that first, guys, 14 and a half hours of dead air. And that was due to the fact that the internet goes out. No network connectivity here. And, by the way, the 3 surrounding counties. So that was very interesting. And then immediately after, we get everything back up. The next thing you know, you have, what, salsa music.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was kind of nice. Thank you, Shoutcast.
But the interesting thing is it had to have been done from that end. It wasn't done like on our end. It wasn't like hacked into, our system. It had to have been done on the back end through the Shoutcast system, and that's kind of creepy.
Right, no, for sure. And just everybody that, if you don't know, Shoutcast is owned by AOL, so it's an AOL company who just recently got bought out by Google. And Google, of course.
CIA consolidated their companies.
Yes, they're consolidating. They're trying to monopolize everything. And so to the Central Intelligence Agency, who just suffered a pretty big setback this week, and we'll talk about that. Tune in. You might learn something. But we got a lot to talk about tonight, Timmy, and the first thing on the list is this blog entry that you sent, Poor Richard's blog. $43 trillion plus $36.5 trillion plus one computer virus equals one big fraud.
And, folks, you can find that on the front page of Orion Talk Radio right now.
Absolutely. Now, this post, very interesting. That's a lot of money. Good grief. Says the amount of fraud in America has reached astounding levels. On the CBS Evening News on 9/10/2001, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld admitted that neither he nor his comptroller, Rabbi Dov Zakheim, could trace the whereabouts of $2.3 trillion missing from the DOD. And I remember that news conference, Timmy. That was I didn't think much of it at the time except for, wow, it's a lot of money to be misplaced, Yeah.
Well, it wasn't misplaced. Believe me. They knew where to put it.
Oh, they know where they put it, all right. It says also on the same night, persons unknown backed up a few trucks to World Trade Center's towers 4 and 5 and took about $1 billion in gold and silver bullion from the Canadian Nova Scotia Bank Vault and from the Comex Metal Exchange Vault next door. Also on 9/11, all Enron documents in the SEC offices at Building 7 were destroyed, which saved Wall Street a few $1 billion in lawsuits. Also on 9/11, Dr. Jim Willey says Cantor Fitzgerald offices in the North Tower, which had all of the documentation on the sale of $3.5 trillion in fraudulent Treasury bonds, was destroyed when the North Tower collapsed. He compared the deficit announced by the Treasury to the monthly sale of U.S. Treasury bonds and found that $3.5 trillion more had been sold than the Treasury needed to fund the deficit. Fortunately for the men who participated in these frauds, no pesky reporters from the mainstream press have bothered to ask anyone in Washington about any of the above criminal acts. You might remember Jim Willey as the man who said 40,000 tons of gold allocated in customer accounts had been stolen. We know that NATO also stole 144 tons of Libyan gold and $98 billion in cash and securities. Now, Germany and the Netherlands have been asking the Federal Reserve and the Bank of England if their gold is still there. But we're now entering a whole new era of extreme fraud where the amount involved has become staggering. The total gross domestic product of the world is a mere $50 trillion. Isn't that a mere, Timmy? It's a pittance.
Yeah. Just a little drop in a bucket.
That's right. The total level of fraud is even greater than that. That means that the bankers are going to steal everything and leave you with nothing if your assets are either pieces of paper or credit entries in a computer. I'm just... Ugh. The Spire Law Group filed a civil action alleging racketeering and money laundering against more than 1,400 bankers, government officials, and other criminals seeking the return of $43 trillion to the Treasury. If the lawsuit is not thrown out of court, and, you know, Tim, there's every reason to believe that it would, the discovery process will be hilarious. But most observers do not see Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and the Federal Reserve opening their books. The next scandal totals up to $36.5 trillion and involves both mortgage-backed securities and Hurricane Sandy. In the old days, people used to have a clear title to their home registered at their county courthouse. If a mortgage holder sued, he would have to go through the legal process to deprive you of your property. But the bankers created the mortgage-backed security system in 1995, which now records about 2/3 of all mortgages in the U.S. If your home mortgage has an 18-digit MERS number, you might be in trouble. More than one law firm is engaged in robo-signing fraudulent foreclosures. In one case, however, a homeowner who never had a home mortgage was foreclosed and lost his house. One robo-signing notary firm in Florida, for $95, would print out a machine sign a mortgage note against your house. In this particular case, the man recovered his home on appeal. The state of Nevada stopped these robo-signing cases by passing a law guaranteeing jail time for lawyers and bankers who filed fraudulent papers to claim a home that did not belong to them. That did stop the fraud. But the current administration settled 50 individual state claims filed against the bankers for less than 0.1% of the $6.3 trillion in MBS frauds that Ben Bernanke had to buy to keep the bankers out of jail. Just think about that for a second. $6.3 trillion in mortgage-backed securities, Tim.
Wow.
I mean, what? These are staggering numbers. And they play with this stuff like it's monopoly money.
Yeah. With no regard for us, you know, and what you said, you know, about the mortgage fraud with, you know, bankers claiming houses, you know, that weren't even under a mortgage. God, I can't count the number of stories I've read, you know, about this happening since, you know, 2008. And the fact that none of these bastards are behind bars by now, or anybody from Wall Street for that matter.
That's right. We've already reached a point where people who had just taken out mortgages lost their homes in a lawsuit to someone who proved they had the real title. The situation has grown exponentially worse since Hurricane Sandy. And I'm going to stop there because when we come back, I'm going to tell you how Hurricane Sandy is really at the heart of a lot of this. You know, yep. We've always said, Timmy, that, you know, whenever you have a natural disaster or something like this, yep. you know, look out for the powers that be to capitalize on it.
Yeah, we talked about that the day it was going on. He says, oh, boy, watch what happens. They're going to do something. You know, man, we were talking to, who was it we were talking to about the power being out in the financial district? And I thought, oh, well, there's going to be some corruption going on in there.
That's right. That's right. And sure enough, we've sniffed it out. So we're going to talk about that when we come back from break. And also tonight, folks, we're going to get into the Texas, state of Texas, about their push to nullify the NDAA. We'll also talk about General Petraeus a little bit and where they're going with that, and also the economy, as Mark Farber foresees a market meltdown here in the near future. So we'll talk about all that and more when the Freedom Link continues after these messages. Don't go. Just a reminder about our Chippin' banner. If you like what you hear on Orion Talk Radio, you can help us with a personal donation through our online Chippin' banner. Look for it on our website on the left-hand side, and give it a click, and you can help us spread the truth by supporting one of the fastest-growing radio outlets in the world. We sincerely thank you for helping us get the word out. Orion News Talk, news and views beyond the mainstream media. Joe Joseph and Tim Watts, and we're talking about Hurricane Sandy and the potential, the opportunity, I should say, for the powers that be to exploit it.
Yep. Every catastrophe, they find a way to make money.
And this certainly did not appear on my radar at all, to be quite honest with you. At the very beginning of it, it's only when we started talking, I think it was with John Hankey, that we were talking about the fallout from Sandy and, you know, what that could possibly mean. And that's when we started talking about what would happen if the power went out on Wall Street, you know, for a significant amount of time. But as this post continues, it says the vault of the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the DTCC, at 55 Water Street in Manhattan was flooded. Inside the vault was $36.5 trillion in securities from the U.S. and 122 other countries. In 2011, DTCC settled the clearance of almost all security transactions in the U.S., totaling $1.7 quadrillion. Was the only physical copy of your investment just destroyed? This is just a list from Wikipedia of the types of certificates that DTCC handled and were just flooded out. Stocks, corporate and municipal bonds, unit investment trusts, government and mortgage-backed securities, money market instruments, and over-the-counter derivatives. It also manages transactions between mutual funds and insurance carriers and the respective investors. Hold on to your wallet. There's even more bigger fraud coming your way very, very soon. I don't care if a few $100 trillion in claims for credit default swaps are not paid out. Nobody has that much money anyway. Just cancel all the credit default swaps that guaranteed all those bonds in Europe and for the returns on U.S. Treasuries. However, you might want to take a look at a video, and I'm going to post this in the archive too on YouTube, this link, so you can watch this video titled Virtual 9/11 Below. Okay? Because it's a very informative video. I don't want to play it over the air because there's some visual stuff that you have to see as well. The only proof you have that you own a stock or have money in a bank is an entry in a computer owned and operated by known criminals. So, you think it stops there, Timmy?
No.
Of course not. So,
no.
Not only is a fraud perpetrated by that, and all of a sudden, oh, by the way, this vault at the Depository Clearinghouse gets flooded out, where there just so happens to be $36.5 trillion in investment, for people stored there, that being like one of the only places where this stuff is stored. And now we talk about, how it's logged in on this computer, owned and operated by known criminals. So enter the sons of Stuxnet. The Stuxnet computer virus was created by the U.S. and Israel to attack Iran's nuclear power plant. Stuxnet was targeted at Siemens Corporation's controllers. It was found to somehow spread all the way to Japan, where some have accused an Israeli security firm of loading the virus into the controllers at nuclear plants prior to Fukushima. Oh, what? flames and other viruses were also created by the CIA in Israel. Senator Joe Lieberman and spokesmen inside the Obama administration have repeatedly accused Iran of attacking American computers with denial of service and DNS attacks.
What a joke.
Yeah, I know.
Attack everybody else.
Okay, yeah, exactly. If you don't know what these are, you can call anyone who has an internet radio network opposed to the NATO invasions of Libya and Syria and have denounced Israel for doing 9/11, what they are. It's preposterous to claim that Iran is attacking U.S. banks. The Iranian president has said his country will be free from an unprovoked attack as soon as America's debts collapse, the economy making the U.S. incapable of bombing Iran. Iran doesn't need a computer virus to sink the U.S. banks. The U.S. is engaged in such massive fraud that investors might soon pull their money from American stock and bond markets as well as their banks. The only persons who would benefit from loading American banks and brokerage houses with computer viruses would be Israel and Wall Street. There are probably a lot of bankers in the city of London who would also love to catch that same computer virus. In France, during the recent bank runs, bankers pulled the plug on their computers. Then they told their customers they could not access their money today. The DTCC has been experiencing hundreds of millions of dollars in failures to deliver transactions. An investor who shorts stock is supposed to borrow someone else's shares at his brokerage. If he sells short without borrowing your stocks, then he can just pocket the money if he knew on what day the nasty virus wiped out all the banks and brokerage records. A virus could conveniently wipe out all banks and brokerage records. It would eliminate all lawsuits. Of course, all of your money would belong to the bankers. Your only recourse would be tar and feathers and asset seizure. But
I like the tar and feathers.
I like the tar and feather part,
yeah.
yeah.
That's nuts.
But that's the way the bankers have passed the Patriot Act, the John Warner Defense Act of 2007, and oh, Tim, your favorite, the NDAA.
Yep.
Yes. And that's why they bought 1.6 billion 40 caliber hollow point rounds, 30,000 drones, and set up 805 FEMA and National Guard camps. That's why they created the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA. And that's why the DHS hired more than 200,000 contractors. And that's why they created InfraGuard, which gives private corporations the right to kill you if they imagine you pose a threat. That's why they created 72 threat fusion centers to get control of local police. That is why their courts have legalized torture by calling it pain compliance. And that is why they've been blowing up buildings with American since 1993. I should point out that after the video that's embedded in this article, when it was made, the Israeli army and the Mossad had finally convinced the Israeli cabinet that it would be suicidal to attack Iran. They say that Iran could be attacked as part of World War III. Yes, World War III. And Timmy, I mean, with some of those facilities in Iran, you know, they're deep underground.
Yeah.
And they're free, and I guess they're so deep that, you know, even the latest bunker busters can't hit them. If the propaganda that's being spewed is true, and it would be a smart move on Iran's part. Okay, you know, we got mountains, we bury them deep inside mountains. They can't get us. Well, they can if they go nuke. You know, they do like a tac nuke or a neutron bomb or something like that. They could probably do it.
Sure.
You know, but of course then you have fallout, and then you have not only that, but political fallout and the possibility that other countries would launch on the United States. You know?
Wow, that break came fast.
It sure did. But I mean but do you see how this is all setting up? And it's all because of the just rampant greed and corruption that has just taken over every facet of the American business model, of our economy, hell, of our society.
Well, I mean, there's a plan at work here, that's for sure. There is a plan that is unfolding right before us.
Absolutely. So don't go away, folks. We'll continue laying out this plan when we come back. Welcome back, folks. Don't forget, if you want to drop me a line, you can drop me a line by sending an email to the Freedom Link at CenturyLink.net. That's the Freedom Link at CenturyLink.net. Joe Joseph here, along with Tim Watts, and we're discussing the corruption, the looting, the plundering of America, and specifically, now we're getting into Iran and how that all plays into certain things, and how Israel's really chomping at the bit to, drop the hammer on old Iran. And, these guys have been, they've been at each other's throat for a while now, Timmy. But what's interesting with Iran is the only way that Israel could actually penetrate some of these deep underground facilities that Iran has is with the use of a nuclear weapon, or at least that's the way it's being sold to us through the media. Of course, we have no real data unless you go there and see it for yourself. You don't know if what you're being told is correct these days. But it's
not if you get it from the mainstream media. I'm so tired of people saying, well, Iran's a bad guy. I'm like, how much time did you spend in Iran?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You get it from the media, and that's about it.
There's no limit. There's no limit to the insanity of Israeli politicians. It just gets worse every day for Israel. Iran keeps adding faster missiles to their arsenal. They're now building their own S-300 air defense systems. They already have the Chinese HQ-9, which incorporated American and Israeli technology. The only attack that could work would be a nuclear first strike against Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Pakistan. But no American military officer would go for it. So I see World War III as less likely that Israel and rogue elements in the CIA releasing advanced bioweapons viruses to kill off 90% of all human beings. That's one thing that we overlook all the time, Tim, is when we talk about this, they've set the stage with that, with chemtrailing. I mean, people really do go about their business as if nothing's going on, all the while, lines are being drawn across the sky. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, what control do you really have? There's not much you can really do about it. You got to go to work. You got to, make a living for your family. And because of that, I mean, life has to go on. But one day, all it takes is that one plane. Yeah. That one plane just to psh, and no one would know what hit them.
No, it's an excellent point, Joe. The fact that people don't notice the difference between a regular jet contrail, which is, again, water vapor in the air that does, dissipate, like they used to in the old day. When I was a kid, you looked up and from one end, you saw the plane on the one end, you looked on the other end, and you saw the little contrails start to fade, as it worked its way across the sky, and it doesn't anymore. Excuse me. Doesn't. So what they do is they fan out. But for people to not notice that, that's just insanity. But now they're getting set up for what you just said, and that's very plausible. They could come across the sky, throw something down, people wouldn't know it, and God knows how many people would die within the day.
So, right now we're looking at, $79.5 trillion in potential fraud cases right now. $43 trillion with that lawsuit in D.C., $36.5 trillion in mortgage-backed securities and other investments in that flooded vault in New York City on 55 Water Street. Yep. A Stuxnet-style computer virus that could wipe out investment accounts and everything else. And then we have the whole Iran thing. And that doesn't even take into account Europe. It doesn't take into account, even though I don't think that we'd go over a fiscal cliff. And even if we did right now, to me, it'd be probably a better thing that we did, at least to come to some sort of reality. But there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the world right now that Go ahead, Timmy.
Sorry. Go ahead. You finish your thought, and I'll
well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that could sway things either way. You know, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
One piece of advice.
There's a lot of proof that shows, someone's been bilking.
Say that again, Tim. Oh, I think I lost.
We seem to have a bad Skype lag here.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say there's a lot of evidence that people have been bilking us for quite a while. And, one of the things that I think that article didn't touch on, I glanced over it real quick, but, remember September 11th, not the one we all remember, but September 11th, 2008, when there was a huge run on the Federal Reserve. You remember that one?
Yes, I sure do.
And they even did it 11 in the morning. The Federal Reserve suddenly noticed there's a huge drawdown of money that's, flying out of the United States to the tune of $550 billion in, about an hour or two. And so what's the Treasury do? Oh, God, what's going on here? We got to stop this. So they pump another $105 billion into the system, think, oh, yeah, that's going to help, which was probably just, help them get some more money. But, in the end, they couldn't stop it. What they had to do is they had to pull the plug on the whole damn thing. Because they says if they wouldn't have done that, by 2 o'clock that afternoon, $5.5 trillion would have been drawn out of the money market system of the United States, and that would have collapsed the entire economy at that time. So fortunately, somebody caught it. But again, there's a paper trail, folks, going back, quite a ways. On 9/11, as Joe said in that article, we had 9/11, 2008, and now look what's just happened with Sandy.
That's right. And folks, one thing I was going to say is, as far as advice is concerned, you see all these things on the horizon. You see all this impending doom almost, and quite often you try to, see which way the wind's going to blow. You see if you can predict the change in wind direction. And oftentimes, as a matter of fact, 99 times out of 100, every time I try to speculate as far as what's going to happen, it ends up being something totally different. It's never what I expect. So the biggest thing I could tell you folks right now is to take more control of your life and also do what you can each day. You live for each day. Don't try to predict what's going to happen tomorrow because you don't know. No one knows. And the biggest thing you can do is just do the best job you can each day. Be that activist. Go out and fight for your children and your children's children. Because if you don't, we're lost. And Texas, the state of Texas, has once again entered the fray. Now, if you remember the last time Texas did something major against the federal government, federal government came in and pressured the crap out of them. And that was with the TSA, Tim. You remember that? Yeah. How they were trying to kick the TSA out of Texas, and now they're doing an NDAA nullification bill.
That's awesome.
So they have a nullification bill that's going to circulate through this Texas state legislature, and my wife just informed me too that they're refiling that TSA bill also to try and get it.
Derek Rose busy down there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Derek, you got to keep us posted there, bro. But this is from the 10th Amendment Center. And it says, at the close of 2011, Barack Obama signed the NDAA for the year 2012. In it are what some constitutional experts consider to be some of the greatest constitutional violations in American history. At issue is Section 1021 and 1022, which in essence creates a new power for the federal government to indefinitely detain without due process any person indefinitely. That's a little different than kidnapping. In response, there's been a bit of a firestorm from people across the political spectrum. Let's see here. Currently, more than 15 local communities have outlawed the NDAA. At the close of 2012, Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, at the close of 2011 into 2012, Governor Bob McDonnell of Virginia signed House Bill 1160, making that state the first to pass a law not only rejecting the federal act, but fully banning any state agency from cooperating with the feds. And then again, in Texas, they have Lyle Larson introduced House Bill 149, the Texas Liberty Preservation Act. This might be the strongest anti-NDAA bill yet. When we come back, I'm going to get into the facets of this bill, because if it goes off unhindered and it's passed and signed into law, it truly would be a trend-setting bill. And this should be trend-setting, folks. When there's injustice, then we have to seek redress. And if we don't get it, then we have to make the redress ourselves. And that's going to take effort. It's going to take time. It's going to take energy. But, you know, the sacrifice that it entails is worth it. Because all you have to think of is, what are your children going to be handed when they get old enough? You know? We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away, folks. Get your day started off the right way with Morning Brew, hosted by the hostess with the mostest, Gwen Caldwell. Up-to-date news and information, plus some of the best guests you'll hear on Midday Radio. That's Morning Brew with Gwen, weekdays at 12 noon right here on Orion Talk Radio. Joe Joseph and Tim Watts were talking about this bill to not only nullify the NDAA, but it would also seek criminal charges for any federal agents that actually violated the provision of this law. I mean, it really takes it a step farther. It states in part, Section 1021 and 1022 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2012 violates portions of federal law, the United States Constitution, and the Texas Constitution, and as such are invalid and illegal in this state. It also, like Virginia's law, requires full noncompliance with the federal act. Quote, it is a policy of this state to refuse to provide material support for or to participate in any way with the implementation within this state of Sections 1021 and 1022 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2012. Any act to enforce or attempt to enforce those laws is in violation of this subchapter. So this is good stuff. But the Texas legislation takes it a step further, codifying into state law criminal penalties for violations of the act by even federal agents. Quote, a person who is an official, agent, or employee of the United States or an employee of a corporation providing services to the United States commits an offense if the person enforces or attempts to enforce a statute, a rule, or regulation, an order, or any law of the United States in violation of this subchapter. An offense under subsection A is a Class A misdemeanor punishable by a confinement term of not to exceed 1 year and a fine not more than $10,000.
Oh, please.
I know. So it's like a little slap on the hand.
A little slap on the hand. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. You know, so yeah, you get probation if you try to detain somebody indefinitely without due process.
Wow. Not to exceed a year. Why?
Well, I mean, it's a start, Timmy. It's a start, you know? Yeah. There hasn't been a law yet that has looked to try and secure criminal charges. You know, so this is good. It says this coming legislative session, Texas won't be alone in their efforts. Sources close to the 10th Amendment Center tell us to expect at least 10 other states considering the same. And potentially dozens of counties and cities can be expected to move along with these items as well.
Nice.
So, I mean, again, you know, there's a little bit of hope here that maybe something's getting kickstarted. You know, maybe this is the lightning in the bottle that we're looking at, is the TSA, the NDAA, this big push for police state powers, which appear to be in preparation for some sort of economic downturn or collapse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, clearly someone is trying to tip this economy. I mean, I wrote an article about this a while back, and you just look at the Fed's recourse on what they did, you know, with the bailout. You know, we've talked about that before. They could have given it to the American people. They could have stopped the mortgage crisis overnight. You know, so many things could have been done to abate, you know, what has happened to our economy. But no, they chose the recourse. They chose the other, a different recourse. They went 180 degrees from what should have been the right approach to this problem. And basically they exacerbated the whole thing. So, and again, we've got, guys with, master's degrees and PhDs in finance and economics. And seriously, that was the best you guys could come up with? You really thought that bailing out the rich was really going to trickle back down? I don't know. It's been an job.
Exactly. The whole time. It was never meant to better society or to take a load off of, Joe the plumber. But I'll tell you what, the problem that I have is this debt. Who can pay it back? It's impossible. So how, if it's truly impossible to pay it back, then why even bother trying? Yeah. That's my thing. I don't know. I believe that the United States has the resources it needs to be self-sufficient. And if that's the case, then to hell with globalism. What the hell do we need that for?
Yeah.
I don't see how it benefits us at all at this point. And all we are, the UN strong arm of the world, that's really all our purpose is until we're bankrupt and we have no more use. Then they'll move on to the next one, which will probably be China. So, and if that's the case, oh boy, look what we get to look forward to. As if you think it's bad enough now? You think it's bad? Just wait. But like I said, this NDAA law offers some hope. And also, this is Infowars.com reporting, round 2, Texas bill would ban invasive TSA pat-downs. You remember how the feds stopped this bill from passing last time by the threat to impose a blockade on all air traffic, almost like a no-fly zone over the state of Texas. Well, now, a new bill was introduced by Representative David Simpson that would criminalize invasive TSA pat-downs in Texas and put the Lone Star State on course for another collision with the feds, who last year torpedoed the similar legislation by enforcing a no-fly zone over Texas. The Texas Travel Freedom Act, House Bill 80, would ban the very procedure that has caused rancor across the country, namely any pat-down that, quote, touches the anus, breast, buttocks, or sexual organs of the other person, including touching through clothing. Huzzah! The bill would make it an offense for a TSA screener or indeed any federal employee to remove, quote, a child younger than 18 years of age from the physical custody or control of a parent or guardian of the child or a person standing in the stead of a parent or guardian of the child. This would put an end to the TSA's penchant for separating children from their parents when conducting invasive pat-downs on minors. And just like Ann's just said in my ear, can you believe it, Tim, that we even have to spell this out?
Yeah, but it's nice that somebody's finally waking up. But again, it's absolutely ridiculous that it's gone this far and this long. First off, quit flying, folks. I mean, I have. Granted, I never used to fly that much, but I've quit because that's the only thing that's going to make the airlines realize, hey, maybe this TSA thing isn't helping us out a lot. If we all quit flying and we tell them, well, we're not flying because of TSA and we're a little pissed off about getting patted down on our genitals, I think things might change. But, a lot of people just, it's been sold to them through the media. It's a good thing. It's going to make you safer. So you've still got a bunch of idiots out there that are willing to put up with it. And that's the sad thing, that it's gone on this long because we've had so many idiots to think it's for their safety. Oh, I'm going to be safer because of this. But,
I think they just did a poll, to talk to your point real quick, Timmy. They just did a poll where a third of Americans said that they would submit to body cavity searches to fly.
Good gosh, are you kidding me?
A third.
Well, now, all right, hang on there a second, because what did we figure out? When I looked at the Nielsen ratings to see how much of America was watching TV, it was 1/3. Roughly a little over 100 million people are still tied in to watching TV, according to Nielsen. So that would fit.
Yeah, no, I think it would. You're right. So, again, I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. The fact that we have to spell this out, this is a major problem. Yeah. I mean, what does this say about the society and who we are as a people? To say that we're willing to sit idly by and accept this egregious, atrocious behavior. I mean, it really speaks volumes about where our society has gone.
I think most people are level-headed, and could figure it out, but for the fact that those that are still too trusting and too gullible with the mainstream media. Because a lot of those people have woken up, and they, oh, yeah, this is bad, and people they do snap themselves out of it. But there are just too many people who are too trusting and accept, the line that this is here to make us safer. And who's propagated that lie for us, Joe? Gee, I hate to keep going back to my old nemesis, the media, but that's it. If we didn't have the media telling people this crap and selling this lie to everybody, I think a lot more people probably would have woken up by now. But the fact that it's just an everyday thing that, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. So again, the media is a huge, huge, huge part of this. And this is why I call for the media and many of these people to be charged as accessories to the crime, whether it be the economic crisis, whether it be 9/11, whether it be the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, anything illegal that's happened in this country in the last 12 years, the media has to be made an accessory. And I'm deadly serious about that, folks. I think a lot of those people should be swinging or in prison because they have facilitated this entire thing by getting people who are too trusting. Think, oh, no, you can't lie on TV. No, well, folks, let me tell you, there's nothing in the FCC says you can't lie on the radio, you can't lie on TV. That's a myth. Just get that out of your head right now. They do lie, and they lie all the time. So you take the media out of the equation again. I don't know. I think we got people that wake up a little quicker, Joe, but who sold it to everybody? Who sold this to the American people? Our politicians did, but
absolutely.
The media, they were the echo chamber for the whole thing.
Yep. No, they were certainly that. And they push it too, They're the ones that push it out. They're the ones that push the agenda out to the gullible public. And I mean, look at this last election as we close out hour number one. We saw 2% of the national vote go to third-party candidates. Just 2%. So it just goes to show you how many people actually get it. And even some of those probably don't get it. So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out in the state of Texas. Folks, hour number one is done. Hour number two is on the way. Don't go away. We'll be right back. It's hour number two of the Freedom Link here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Tim Watts, recovering from this horrible day today.
And we're back on the air again.
Back on the air again.
It's been really interesting, Joey and I made a little correlation because we started having a lot of problems. Remember, Joey, when we did that three-week run on the Conspiracy Chronicles where we featured one of America's famous crime families, the Bush family?
Yes, the Bush Syndicate.
I'm telling you what, after we got done doing that, I mean, was it the first one? We got knocked off the air like 4 times within, that broadcast, all in that weekend, I guess.
That's right. And another thing, too, let me throw this out to the listeners out there. Maybe we can do a little test. Because another one of the fallout of doing this Bush expose, I guess you could say, is when I put the archive of one of the broadcasts, and it's called The Bush Family, 4 Generations of Treason on my YouTube channel. In 2 days, it got like 709 views, and then all of a sudden, it froze. And now for 2 weeks, it's been stuck on 709 views. So listeners out there, visit my YouTube channel. It's The Freedom Link Radio on YouTube. And look up that 4 Generations of Treason archive and just go there. You don't even have to listen. You probably heard it already.
Yeah.
But just go there and let me see if the counter goes up. Because now it's been over 2 weeks and it has not moved. And that would be the first time that any of the archives ever did that.
Yeah. Which someone's trying to shut that message down. They don't want you folks to see that. So, yeah, right. Please do what Joe says. Go out, try it, try to play it, and we'll see if that number goes up. If enough of you hit it tonight, we'll see if that number rises up.
Yeah, one of the other things I did today was played that History Channel special documentary on Smedley Butler and the FDR coup attempt, to overthrow FDR. And I played that in my Constitution class today, and I'll tell you what, it was interesting because the kids, they actually enjoyed it. One of the things that, the whole reason why I played that, we kind of took a break from the Constitution for a week and we went and we explored this is because what a great example, Tim, of history that just is not taught in schools. But if you take a look now at the dynamic in this country, we're really at an identical point in our nation's history to where we were in the early 1930s.
And we're at the exact same point, to me.
Yeah, yeah. And nobody knows anything.
It's the exact same scam. It's the exact same thing, folks. You know, in the 20s, they collapsed Wall Street. The rich people pulled all their stuff out, so they didn't take the hit. They collapsed it, you know, and then they swooped in and bought up all the companies, you know. I mean, everything is happening the exact same way.
You know what's funny, Tim? It reminds me of a Bible verse. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the day, you know, in the end days. And here we are now, and it's just like it's the same thing. Sounding the alarm, and nobody hears. You know, again, I brought up that stat in the last hour. 2% of the national vote went to third-party candidates. So that just goes to show you, it's a staggering amount of people, Tim, that actually are still plugged into the matrix.
Yeah. That was one of the sadder things to come out of the election, other than the fact, you know, that Prop 37 failed out there. But, yeah, I don't know if I actually believe that only 2%, you know, voted either. You know, obviously there was some manipulation going on there.
Right.
You know, with HAVA. And, I mean, they don't want to give federal matching funds to these people, so I'm sure they probably did everything they could to hold them down.
Well, not to mention there's a fairly large block of voters, or non-voters out there, I should say, that just choose not to participate.
But Paul Camp alone.
Yeah.
Ron Camp alone. I mean, just those people voting, I can't imagine many of them voted for the alternative, you know, for the lesser of two evils. I would have thought they all would have voted for an alternative candidate, a third-party candidate, I should be saying. And, you know, when you see just 2% show up, that number just did not sit right with me. I'm like, wow, there were a lot of people that were dissatisfied this election cycle. And really, that's all we got was 2%?
Well, you know what you had, too, also was the whole Rand Paul debacle where he goes and endorses Romney, has a primetime speaking and, you know, he has a primetime speaking moment during the RNC. And now, get this, Tim, now he's pushing a bill through Congress in the lame duck session of Congress for a path to citizenship for illegal immigrants. You know, and again, I know that he's not Ron Paul. I mean, anybody that can back Mitch McConnell is not Ron Paul.
Yep.
And even to this day, this article that's written about, and you can find this on Drudge, by the way, folks, but this article that's written about Rand Paul, you know, always talks about his father being on the fringe. He's always on the fringe, you know. Oh, well, you know, the Constitution is the fringe. Whereas, you know, Rand Paul gets it. He knows how to communicate with people within his party and is making great strides. He doesn't want to be that bench player anymore. He wants to be the guy in the catbird seat, ready to run for president in 2016. You know, but see, here's the thing. I just don't see. A lot of people are like, oh, no, this is all part of the plan. You know, this is what he does. He's going to go in there. He's going to change it from the inside. That's what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the problem is you have to look at his character. His character doesn't speak to that. You know, his voting record doesn't speak to that. And how he talks to people. He talks to people like he talks like he's a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
You ever hear his mannerisms?
What's the old saying about character? You know, character is what happens when people aren't around.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that you have in you, you know, and I'm sorry, Rand Paul, I don't care much for the guy's character or the lack of character.
Exactly. He's not his daddy.
Nope.
That much is for sure. It just not. I don't think he's got the backbone, and I certainly don't think he's got the integrity to be a Ron Paul. And to be honest with you, I don't think he'd be as popular within some Republican circles if he was like his father. Probably be an outcast, you know, like his father and Dennis Kucinich and others that have kind of stood a line, drawn a line in the sand when it comes to certain things. You know, Barry Goldwater, another great example. So, I mean, there's so that really kind of chapped my hide when I saw that. I'll be honest with you. I'm not of the opinion that any illegals should get amnesty in any way, shape, or form. That the Constitution calls out, pretty much that there are certain ways to go about this. That there are laws in the books that say you have to follow a process if you want to immigrate to this country. And in the past, it hasn't been that bad. I mean, we're a nation of immigrants.
Well, isn't that, I don't know what the hell's going on with this one either. And I thought, wow, that's pretty extreme. Just make them all legal. So if you were going to make them legal, wouldn't they shove them through that process? I mean, we're not just going to wave a wand and say, wing, you're all legal now. I mean, somewhere along the line, they'd have to document this, wouldn't they?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
This process.
Yeah. Now, if they set up like the Ellis Island express lane, like they had in the 20th century, fine. But the other thing too is when you come here, the national language is English.
Yeah.
At least take the time to learn the national language. Our tax dollars are spent on translating everything in Spanish and English and God knows whatever else. National language is English.
Well, and that's what immigration services used to do. You used to have to learn English,
Yeah.
To go to class, they have to learn the Constitution, and you used to have to learn about America,
That's right. Wow. Look at that. Up against the break already. Folks, this is just flying by. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the secession movement underway on whitehouse.gov, and also we'll talk a little bit about the economy, too. And if we can get to General Petraeus, we will. But what can I say? Just another dirty dog. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, folks. Joe Joseph and Tim Watts here. And we're talking about, this White House secession movement. And I call it the White House secession movement for a specific reason. Because I don't think that anybody in their right mind would go and start a secession petition to be posted on whitehouse.gov, Tim. I mean, this reeks to me of a data mining operation.
Oh, yeah. And they did the same thing earlier this year. Remember what was the petition they had up about investigate? Was it 9/11? And it was actually on whitehouse.gov. I'm like, really? What's the downside to this? And I think you hit on it. It's like data mine, get everybody's name on a list. Oh, here's some more for the no-fly list. Here's some more for our terrorist watch list. These are the people that are disgruntled with government right now.
Exactly right. I mean, think about it. These guys are like high-fiving right now because they're going to get like the Rolex watch at the end of the year for just shattering the quota. Hey, look what we found. We got like 1.2 million terrorists. Woo! Hard work right there. Got to do is post a damn survey on or damn petition on whitehouse.gov. Who knew? I mean, folks, don't be that stupid. If a state's going to secede, it's not going to ask the White House for permission.
Well, and secondly, think about, the secession thing. That always drives me nuts when I hear people, talk about that because, we've always talked about the air quotes here now, powers that be, and what they want to do to roll us all into a new world order. Well, what better thing to do than to break up the United States, the country that's been the roadblock in this whole thing all along? So, people think, oh, yeah, we're going to secede. We're going to secede from the Union, And, well, all right, let's see how that helps us out, folks. I can't honestly say that we're going to be operating from a position of strength at that point. Yeah, true, we'll have 50 independent states, but I think, a lot easier to pick off one by one than, remaining together as a whole. Just my opinion, but...
Well, it certainly paves the way for despotism to really enter in a mass scale because how do each of the individual states defend themselves against another sovereign power? Exactly. Therein just lies a huge problem for me because And I'm not all convinced that all of these, quote, enemies would just go do that. But I certainly wouldn't put it past them. I mean, their national interest and their greed, their people in China, the powers that be in China are just as corrupt as the powers that be here in the United States. I mean, money corrupts those people just as easy as they corrupt us. So I mean, it's I don't think there's really an easy answer to the problem we have here.
But back to your point, it's interesting, who floats us, how this stuff gets out there, on whitehouse.gov. I mean, seriously, folks, really, from the White House, we're going to secede from the Union. Let's put a little poll up there, or put a little, I'm losing my,
Well, typically what would happen, I mean, just let's look for it as an example, how we left Great Britain, how we seceded from Great Britain.
Yes, good point.
Yeah. Well, when we did, we listed our redress, and we all of our problems. We looked for redress. We didn't get it, so we issued our Declaration of Independence, and we certainly didn't ask King George for permission.
Nope.
And where did the vote happen? The vote happened there in the Continental Congress. Same thing with a state. If a state's going to vote to secede, it's going to vote to secede in the legislature. It's not going to be, President Obama, we're thinking about seceding. What's your thoughts on that? What do you think he's going to say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good idea, kids.
Well, then there's the thought of the federal infrastructure and just how the federal government has really entangled itself in a lot of things. Now, of course, if you do have a mass secession, hypothetically speaking, the federal government would instantly collapse on itself because there's no way it could sustain itself. Once you start losing a state like Texas, I mean, you're talking, that you wouldn't have the tax base with which to draw to maintain what you have. We can't maintain what we have anyway. We already borrow 40 cents on every dollar. Could you imagine if you start losing states like Texas?
Yeah.
What that would mean? I mean, instantaneous collapse. And the states are in no shape to be independent on their own.
No.
Not unless you go back to a constitutional form of government.
Well, they become too reliant on the federal government, and the federal government's done that. With everything from highway funds to you name it. But yeah, the states are very beholden to the federal government right now.
So a sovereign movement or a secession movement, I should say, is all well and good, but you have to have the infrastructure there to be able to make it happen, so that when you flip the switch, that society is maintained. And unfortunately, the states have become so reliant on the free-flowing federal dollars that you would have a serious culture shock if that ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the federal government at the same time, state of Texas leaves, oof. That's a big chunk. That's a big chunk of the economy.
Like California too, or New York.
Yeah, same difference.
Any large state, large populous state, yeah.
14th, you said?
14th largest economy in the world.
Yeah, the state of Texas is the 14th largest economy in the world.
I think California dwarfs that. I think, weren't they supposed to be like 6?
Yeah, they could actually, the two of them could be in the G20.
Yeah, exactly.
So as of 2009, those are the stats.
Exactly.
So yes, asking Obama for permission, or what's your thoughts on that, Obama? What do you think he's going to say?
Well, and back to the original, the first time they did this, I think it was, I might be forgetting, a year or so ago, when they had the petition for 9/11. I think that's what it was, up on whitehouse.gov. And I saw a ton of people that signed that thing, as I, wondered to myself, oh, really? Is this real? A lot of people signed it. All right, so where's the action? Did anything ever happen? No, nothing ever happened. So, you're good. You're right to question this, Joe, because I think, nothing's going to happen Nothing happened the first time around when people signed the petition for 9/11, and I don't see anything happening this time around. First off, I think secession, again, is just a stupid idea, but you sign that list, you're probably right, Joe. They're going to end up on a watch list.
Yeah, I think it's a stupid idea as long as the state is not prepared to be able to take the reins. You know what I mean?
How about the states getting together and say, hey, let's form a new government?
Now, see, you can do that, but there's a danger inherent to that. You know, then you're talking about forming an Article 5 constitutional convention.
Yeah, and then open the door, you bet.
Oh, good night. I mean, while it's, you know, a good idea in principle, the character of people these days leave much to be desired, and I really do fear that they would seek to limit the freedoms that, well, we don't currently enjoy, but we should.
Yeah.
You know, just a thought.
You'd have to have, like, before, I mean, well, break again. Here we go. We'll finish it after the break.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. Folks, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll finish up this talk on the secession movement. We'll also talk about the economy. Mark Farber with some great info here today. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after the bottom of the hour news. Don't go away. Welcome back, folks. Don't forget to tune into my good buddy Popeye every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and again on Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. And Tim, we were talking before the break about these White House petitions, and we got onto some constitutional talk. Is that right? And
yeah.
Okay, so we were talking Article 5 Constitutional Convention. Let me tell you now Article 5.
Well, first off, my question, just to preface what Joe's going into, you know, everybody says, well, you open up a constitutional, you know, convention, you know, Katie bar the door, and now we can explore everything. And I was kind of throwing out there, well, why? You know, why can't we go into it and say, we're only going to address this. These other things are sacred cows. This is holy grail. We don't touch this. So go on.
Article 5 is what lays the ground rules for the altering of the Constitution. So this is Article 5 of the Constitution. And it describes a process where it can be altered. Altering the Constitution consists of proposing an amendment or amendments and subsequent ratification. So you can propose amendments by either 2/3 of both houses of the United States Congress, or by a national convention assembled at the request of legislatures of at least 2/3 of the states. So what happens is, when you have this convention, everything can be thrown out on the floor, right, Tim? But when you go to the congressional process, the 2/3 of both houses, they're voting on each amendment, and each amendment then has to be ratified by 75% of the states afterwards. So it's a convention. You already have these legislatures assembled, and they can go and talk about anything they want during that time and vote on anything they want during that time. And anybody can propose an amendment during that time, and if at least 2/3 of the state agree with it, then, you know, it's proposed. To become part of the Constitution, the legislatures of 3/4 of the states or state ratifying conventions held in 3/4 of the state. So if all the states get together in this little cabal and they all vote at the same time, bada bing, but 3/4 have to ratify it in order for it to become part of the Constitution. Feel me?
Somewhat. I still think there's a way around it. I think there's a way around it.
Oh, no, like I said, a lot of good can come of it. It's just that you have to be sure that what you're doing, it's almost like a risk-benefit analysis you have to kind of perform when you do this to make sure that the benefit from altering the Constitution outweighs the risk that's involved in opening it up to people. You know what I mean? And there are some nefarious people. If you couldn't tell, I mean, through history. That's all.
You think?
Yeah, just a few.
Yeah, really.
Just a few. And apparently, there's a legislator out of Montana that understands the nefarious nature of people, that understands that our economy is really at the precipice. And I'm talking about Montana state legislator Jerry O'Neill, who asked to be paid in gold coins, which is very interesting. A Republican state legislator who once supported U.S. Representative Ron Paul for president is asking to be paid in gold and silver coins to guard against a collapse of the dollar. State Rep. Jerry O'Neill wrote to the State Office of Legislative Services on Friday, making the request, noting that concerns among his constituents about the national debt have prompted him to ask for payment in gold and silver coins that are unadulterated with base metals. O'Neill, who is entering his sixth term, has not objected previously to being paid in dollars by the state for his services. Politico first reported the story on Tuesday. Quote, my constituents, when I went door to door, one of the things they were interested in was the $17 trillion national debt. O'Neill told the Huffington Post, quote, some of my constituents said we would not have this problem if we had a currency backed by gold. The Department of the Treasury, as of this writing, gave the U.S. federal debt as $16.2 trillion. Well, of course, we know it's a lot more than that. O'Neill said these concerns inspired him to look into ways to best protect the people of Montana, and he felt the use of gold to pay his salary and possibly other state bills would be one solution. O'Neill backed Paul in his presidential campaign. One platform was a return to the gold standard, one part of the platform. In his letter to the state, O'Neill said that he believes that accepting gold and silver coins for his salary would allow him to fulfill his obligations to the U.S. Constitution as a legislator. And this is what he wrote. It's very likely the bottom will fall out from under the U.S. dollar. Only so many dollars can be printed before they have no value. The Keynesian era of financing government with debt appears to be close to its demise. If and when that happens, how can we in the Montana legislature protect our constituents? The only answer I can come up with is to honor my oath to the U.S. Constitution and request that your debt to me be paid in gold and silver coins that will still have value when the U.S. dollar is reduced to junk status.
Nice.
I therefore request my legislative pay to be in gold and silver coins that are unadulterated with base metals. How do you like that?
What's the old saying, wish in one hand?
Yeah.
Let's see how far he gets with the noble gesture. I like what he's calling for, but let's see how far he gets with that.
Well, he called other legislatures about the issue over the weekend, all these other legislators, and he said they were hesitant. None of them went with me on the letter. Oh. One said he had to sign a letter to the editor. O'Neill said his monthly salary is $1,800, roughly the value of one gold coin based on the market price. Montana legislators are paid $10.33 an hour during the legislative session, with additional payments for interim sessions, committee meetings, etc., etc. Cheryl Olson, the deputy director of Montana Department of Administration, said O'Neill's request would cause a change in the state payroll structure, noting that currently all employees are paid by a state warrant or via direct deposit. She said that no other states or state workers have requested payment in gold coin. But
hey, the sentiment. Good idea. The sentiment, yeah.
Good idea. You know, and if for nothing else, I mean, look, it got national exposure. Just it's another good point. When it comes to pounding away at the people with this, with the idea that look, our debt again, we can't repay this.
Yeah,
it's a fiat currency, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
As I said, the guy's probably not going to get what he wants, but it's kind of a little bit what you just said. It's a great point, because he got it out there. So, it's something that's a point that's out there floating now that people are going to go, oh, yeah, look what this guy did. And hey, that's not such a bad idea. At least it gets a dialogue going. I'm glad the guy did it for at least just that, to get, spark some debate, get the point out there. Montana is doing a lot of very interesting things lately. Did you see in the election? We've got that on the front page of Orion on the website that they voted, corporations are not people anymore in Montana. I thought that was very cool. So they're doing some interesting things in Montana.
Yep, no, absolutely. And it seems like it's the more rural states that are really taking the bull by the horns with this kind of stuff and offering up these different types of solutions to, maybe somebody wanting to take control of their money a little bit more, or a state legislator, or these laws. You tend to see these bills come from places where you don't have these real big population centers. Texas, of course, excluded in this. But, we were talking about the debt, and, one of the reasons why this guy wanted to do that was because the debt's out of control. And just right now, the debt per citizen, right now as it stands, is $51,650.
Mm-hmm.
Debt per taxpayer, $141,748 per person. And again, are you going to stroke a check?
Where'd you sign up for that, Joe? I mean, where did you ever sign on the bottom line to accept any of that debt?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's a book out there called Invisible Contracts, and I'm going to try and track it down again. But there are so many different ways that you sign these contracts that you don't even know, and it enters you into agreement with this stuff. I mean, it's crazy. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages. Last segment of the broadcast on its way. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. So as we ride off into the sunset this Tuesday evening, I just want to thank all the listeners out there for supporting Orion Talk Radio and making us one of the fastest growing news talk outlets in the country. We couldn't do that without you. And Timmy, we were talking about this debt. Just so people understand and grasp the situation, the debt right now stands at about $51,000 per person in this country. Now, let's talk about unfunded liabilities for a second, and I'm only going to talk three things: Social Security, the prescription drug liability, and Medicare. Unfunded liabilities for Social Security is about $16 trillion. Prescription drug, $21 trillion. Medicare, $84.2 trillion. Total U.S. unfunded liabilities, $121 trillion, or $1,058,759 per taxpayer. That's the anticipated liability per taxpayer to pay for all of the unfunded liabilities. And that's on top of the $50,000 we already owe. How in the hell is anybody going to pay that back, Timmy?
Well, it's like who made the observation earlier? A lot of these things that we never made these agreements, the Federal Reserve did. So let's let the Federal Reserve take care of their own mess.
Yeah, just pick up our tab, would you? Thank you very much.
You just you made this mess, so you got to fix it for us.
That's right, and it is truly a mess. As a matter of fact, Mark Farber was talking about it on CNBC today, and he says prepare for a massive market meltdown. The markets are going to go into meltdown soon, so expect stocks to lose 20% of their value, Mark Farber, author of Gloom, Boom, and Doom, reported Tuesday to CNBC. Quote, I don't think the markets are going down because of Greece. I don't think markets are going down because of the fiscal cliff, because there won't be a fiscal cliff, Faber told CNBC's Squawk Box. The market is going down because corporate profits will begin to disappoint. The global economy will hardly grow next year or even contract. And that is the reason why stocks from the highs of September of 1470 on the S&P will drop at least 20% in my view. Faber, who is known for his bearish views, cited tech giant Apple, a company whose disappointing earnings have caused its stock to fall 20% from its September highs and 14% in the past month. A series of poor quarterly earnings from corporate giants such as Amazon, McDonald's, and Google have hurt investor sentiment in recent weeks. Faber argued that the fiscal cliff, a rise in taxes, and automatic spending cuts would actually involve some minor tax increases in 5 years' time and some spending cuts in 100 years. Yeah, he's right on that point, Timmy. These spending cuts are just a drop in the bucket when you talk about our debt, when it comes to like a percentage of debt. And I think it was, even if it's $2 trillion a year, $2 trillion a year, you're talking what? 200 billion?
Sure.
200 billion out of what's our national debt? Yeah. Drop in a bucket. So, I mean, he definitely has a point there. He says there will be pain and there will be very substantial pain. The question is, do we take less pain now through austerity or risk a complete collapse of society in 5 or 10 years' time? He said, adding that there was a lack of political will to tackle the U.S. budget. Faber added, in a democracy, they're not going to take the pain. They're going to kick down the problems, and they're going to get bigger and bigger. Then he gets into payback time. Faber identifies several issues curbing an economic recovery, such as the real estate market, which he says has never been so overbuilt. He also said there was lots of deleveraging ahead. Quote, in the Western world, including Japan, the problem we have is one of too much debt, and that debt now will have to be somehow repaid, or it will be a slowdown economic growth. I think we lived beyond our means from 1980 to 2007, and now is the payback period. And he says, quote, I think the whole global financial system will have to be reset, and it won't be reset by central bankers, but by imploding markets, either the currency markets, debt markets, or stock markets, he said. It will happen. It will happen one day, and then we'll be lucky if we still have 50% of the asset values that we have today. So, Dr. Doom, chiming in there, Timmy, what's your thoughts on the need for austerity?
I'm in favor of that biblical jubilee, dude. Just get rid of all the debts. What was it in the Bible? Like every 7th year, you wiped out all debt.
That's right. It was what was the name of that? Oh, there's a certain name I can't remember, but
Jubilee or something like that, or
it was that was it. That was like the festival, but it was actually called a certain. Yeah. There was a certain Hebrew word associated with it, and I can't remember what it is. But yes, the forgiving of all debts.
When people say, well, where's that going to get us? Because so many other people are going to lose money. Well, everybody's got debt. So if your debt's canceled, then you're ahead. Maybe, I don't know. There is no good solution to this other than let the people that created it, pay it off or just wipe it out,
Well, think about this.
Pay it back.
No, but think about this as a solution. Like, for example, why now are we not exploring free energy technology?
Yeah.
More so. Why? Because the oil companies would lose their shirts, because the electric companies would lose their shirts, because there are so many corporate interests out there that make so much money off of this old energy technology, and they're not willing to give it up. And they'll do whatever they can to stop it. Whereas Tesla had already started this stuff and was successful in a lot of this free energy technology over 100 years ago.
Yes.
And we've just sat stagnant. But could you imagine what that would do, Tim, if all of a sudden all the energy's at our fingertips and we don't have to pay electric bills and we don't have fuel bills or, all this stuff. Could you imagine the freedom that people would have? You wouldn't be as much of a debt slave or, there would be a liberation.
Mm-hmm. But for the greed of a few people, folks, but for the greed of a few people. I mean, the Wardenclyffe project, and that's what Joe's talking about with Tesla, and Tesla had the thing ready to go. And as Popeye mentioned, you had J.P. Morgan going, oh, where do I plug the meter in, And Morgan was just a minion for Rockefeller anyway. So, I mean, look what those two people did to this country, between Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan. I mean, for crying out loud, those two families need to be held accountable for sure.
Absolutely. So until we can get over this hump and start, seeing things, embrace our humanity again. I don't see an easy solution to the problem either, Tim. I mean, I just don't. Either way you cut it, it's going to suck for somebody.
I think one of the fallacies they throw out there is that they keep saying, we have to pay this debt. And I'm like, why? You're the one that made it, but again, it's just like they just stick that in your head. It's like, got to pay that debt, got to pay that debt.
Yeah, I like your idea. Hey, Federal Reserve, this is your debt. You take it.
You brought this on. You brought this on yourself. And,
That's right.
To your point again, we had a society that back in the 20s that could have been energy, what's that? Energy free, is that the right word I'm trying to? But we would have had abundant energy for free. All right, and again, as Joe says, wow, think of where your society goes when you're not strapped paying for gas, you're not strapped paying for any sort of utilities and stuff like that. This society, I mean, I want my flying car, damn it.
I do too. I mean, why don't we have flying cars?
Then we could, but
I mean, we've had tires for over 100 years. What the hell?
But for the people that own antiquated technologies, and Joe hit it on the head with his earlier statement, that's it. People that own the, quote, fossil fuel, we know what a crock of crap that is, but people that own these antiquated technologies that have had us, shackled to these for hundreds of years, well over 100 years. But again, you stop to think about where society would have been, where we'd be now had Wardenclyffe been allowed to go on, the Wardenclyffe project with Tesla. Man.
I know. I mean, the possibilities are really endless. And but of course, when it comes to Tesla technology, the government will do everything it can to capitalize on the military aspects of Tesla technology.
Absolutely.
And weather manipulation. And we could go on and on. Oh, that's what Conspiracy Chronicles is for every Sunday evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. Oh, shameless plug. Get you some. Wow, Timmy, that was 2 hours of radio. Gonzo, and see you bye.
And it should be noted that we didn't get knocked off the air. So, and again, folks, we have to apologize. Today, the whole thing for the first part of the day, that was the big outage in Buffalo, which just happens to be where the home office is. And then, of course, we get back up. And then later on today, somebody decides to hack us from the Shoutcast side, and then suddenly we're playing Latino music. And so I think we're probably doing our job, Joe. We've ticked somebody off because somebody has seriously taken note of Orion Talk Radio and seems to have it out for us.
No, I totally agree. And even further, as we end tonight's broadcast, I want to bring up something that somebody wrote. Very wise man wrote, "The Tuesday has been an interesting day. The Orion Talk radio stream was deliberately hacked. Our player code was hacked and replaced with Latino broadcast stream. It's obvious that Orion was attacked again, which means that we must be doing a good job because we've drawn the wrath of the powers that be. How cool is that?" To that end, all we can say to them is, bring it. Because we're not going to stop delivering the truth. Nice try, guys. That was, of course, the immortal Tim Watts.
Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you again on Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or